Well, happy Labor Day. Again, I am very, very sorry that I'm not there with you in person. I love you dearly. But we are called to do work. Some work we don't even consider work because we enjoy doing it so much. Some of us work just for the money, and it doesn't matter what we do as long as we get paid. A lot of people, like I said, work for the enjoyment or our ego. There's so many people who go on to or into careers just because they feel that their ego calls for it. I'm going to do this because it makes me feel good. It makes me look good more than feel. It gives me an opportunity to brag about what I do and how I make my money. I remember, excuse me, I remember when during one point in my life, I was working at National Public Radio's headquarters, which I've shared with you before, as head of the on air promotions department for the network. And at the same time, I was working as a jazz DJ at a local radio station. And when people found out what I was doing to earn my living, they would get very impressed. They would just be so overjoyed that they knew someone who was working in the media like that. And I would tell them all the time, it's just how I make my money. It's not who I am. It's not what I am. It's what I do to earn a living. And yeah, it came with a lot of nice perks, but that wasn't what it was all about. I kind of stumbled into it, to be honest with you. I went into radio because I love music. And I volunteered at a public radio station, which turned into a position, which later morphed into the position at NPR. And because the department head got another position at NPR, I got promoted. It wasn't anything I set out to do. But Frances Scovel Shin, I think it's her, said, do what you like and the money will come. Do what you like and the money will come. Ephesians 4:1 tells us, I urge you to live a life worthy of the calling you have received. When Spirit told me that it was time to leave radio, and I left, it didn't make a lot of sense to a lot of people, but I left, and I left willingly. Always, always, always remember that whatever you do it with humility. That second verse in Ephesians chapter 4 tells us, be completely humble and gentle, and be patient, bearing love for one another. Whatever you do it in love. If you answer that call that comes deep within. Whatever you do that you like to call work, or some people like to call work, if you do it in love, it comes easily. It comes effortlessly. But that's not what society tells us to do. Society tells us that it is essential that we go out and we make money and we make bills and we create debt for ourselves. That's what keeps the economy going. But what keeps you going? What keeps you going? You can still work and be fulfilled and be happy in what you do. I listen to our music team. I can tell that they are, each and every one of them, they're doing what they have been called to do, and they do it in love. How many times have we known deep, deep down inside that we were supposed to do something, but then we didn't do it because it was uncomfortable, or we thought that it wasn't going to fulfill our needs, or we just decided, I just don't want to do it right now. I can tell you any number of times when I literally ran in the opposite direction when Spirit was clearly trying to lead me to do something that I just wasn't in the mood to do. Yeah, I'm one of those people. But what happens when you do not answer the call? What happens when you do not answer that call? When you know you're called to do something and you decide for whatever reason, I'm not going to do that. That's what happened to Jonah. I'm not going to go through the whole book of Jonah, but you know the story. I think you know the story. God told Jonah to go to Nineveh, and Jonah told God he didn't want to go to Nineveh. He may not have said it in exactly those words, but rather than go to Nineveh, Jonah went in the exact opposite direction. And he jumped on a ship, and that ship was headed to a city called Tarshish, whole opposite side of the sea. But while at sea, a huge storm came up, and everything was tossed about on this cargo ship. And finally, Jonah told the crew that he believed that the reason they were in that storm is because he had offended God by running away from his obligation and by not doing what God was telling him to do. And you know what they did? Say, well, if you're the cause for our problems, we can get rid of you real easy. And they threw him overboard. And scripture tells us he was swallowed by a great fish. We've learned to just identify that great fish as a whale, because that's basically the largest animal in the sea. And if it's capable of swallowing a human whole, it had to be a whale, right? Maybe, maybe not. But sitting in the belly of that whale, the whale didn't like the way he tasted. It didn't settle right in his stomach. And he regurgitated, threw Jonah out. And where did Jonah end up? On the shores of Nineveh. The exact place, the exact spot where God told him to go in the first place. He wound up back there. He wound up there anyway, against his own will. That storm represents all of those situations that come up in our lives that set into motion the things that we try to get away from, those things that we try to avoid, the path that we don't want to take, doing the work that we may not want to do, but we know it's there for us to do, and it is only ours to do. The revealing word describes a fish as ideas of multiplication. And that scripture, that story about Jonah, reminds us that the fish that swallowed him actually saved him from drowning. Think about it. He was tossed overboard. He would have surely perished in a stormy sea. I don't care how strong a swimmer you are. If you're out there all alone, look at what happened in the Gulf of Mexico just this past week. If you were out there trying to swim, you would have gone. You would have perished. So that fish, whatever that fish was, that whale that swallowed Jonah, saved him and allowed him to complete his mission. Chapter 3 of Jonah tells us that when he was tossed onto the shore, God told him one more time, go to Nineveh. And with that second command, Jonah did exactly what he was told to do. Exactly what he was told to do. When he went to Nineveh, he did the work God told him to do. And as far as I know, he lived a long, fruitful, and prosperous life because he answered the call. Now, I don't know about you, but I got a few Jonah stories, and I'm sure this journey that I'm on right now will probably turn into some type of a Jonah story. I don't know what that is right now, but it'll come to me in time. But I can certainly tell you about something that happened to me in 1993. And I will always, always, always remember this as my major Jonah story. I was having spasms. It was during a season that was very busy in Washington, D.C. As you know, I sew for people. And the Congressional Black Caucus weekend was coming up, and it's just about that time of year now. And I'd been commissioned to make a couple of outfits for that weekend. There was a lot of very productive workshops and seminars going on, but it was also a fashion show. And I started having spasms in my left side. It was very uncomfortable. And during meditation, I clearly heard Spirit say, slow down. And in my infinite wisdom, I told God, yeah, I'll slow down, but I've got to do this, this, and this first. And I'll slow down when I finish because, after all, I made this commitment to people. Well, the spasms radiated around from the side into my chest wall. And I decided maybe I need to go make sure I'm not having a heart attack. Well, I went to the emergency room. I thought they were just going to check me out and send me home. But no, they decided, in their infinite wisdom, to admit me. And I spent 3 days in the hospital and went through all kinds of cardiac tests and treadmill and stress tests and all of that. And after 3 days, the doctor tells me, oh, it's just muscle spasms. I'm like, well, I told you that when I came in the door. And I recognized this was God telling me, slow down. But I'm still thinking I got to finish these dresses and I've got to do this and that. So they sent me home. They put me on bed rest, and I did rest for about a week. I went back to the doctors for a follow-up, and he cleared me to return to full activity. Well, by then, I had to call my clients to let them know, look, you're going to have to find something else to wear, because when I was released from the doctor's care, it was the first day of the caucus weekend. And as you know, I worked in radio. Dizzy Gillespie was still alive back then. It was 93. He was doing a jazz seminar, and I was eager to get there because I had actually worked with him during my days of working in radio. And I had a friend pick me up. We were in the car. We went less than 2 blocks from my home and got rear-ended. I ended up in George Washington University Hospital. That's for those of you who don't know, the same hospital that Ronald Reagan went to when that incident happened at the Hilton. The doctors there diagnosed me with a compression fracture in my lower spine. Not only did I miss everything at the Congressional Black Caucus weekend, I spent a month in bed. I was in physical therapy for more than a year. I walked on a cane for almost a year. Now, if that wasn't Jonah and that whale in my life, I don't know what was, because I certainly learned my lesson. When God tells you to do something, do it. No hesitation, no questions, no arguments, no dialogue, no debate. Just do it. So it's for me, from then on, anytime I am meditating or just get a feeling to do something, like it or not, I'm going to do it. I will explain as best I can to those who may be inconvenienced by my decisions, but I'm going to do what Spirit leads me to do. And I urge each and every one of you to just stop and think for a while, just a few minutes. How many times have you had a gut feeling to do something or to not do something and you didn't follow through? What were your consequences? How did it make you feel? The revealing word teaches us that the law of non-resistance, which Jesus taught, is only demonstrated when we erase from our own consciousness the thought of personal interest personal rights. By setting aside our own will and by living our truth and standing in that truth, we are empowered with the strength and wisdom to do everything that is there for us to do. And we shine our light. And of course, if we're shining our light, we're shining that God light. And that comes from within. Excuse me. The bottom line is that we can run, but we're never going to hide from the work that is ours to do. And when God calls, answer. We must answer, and we will answer. That choice, however, is ours, whether or not to go through the storm or to just joyfully, peacefully, and willingly do the work that we are led to do. Do that work in joy. Do that work in peace. Do that work lovingly and willingly. And surrender. Surrender to the guidance from within as you honor the truth of your oneness with the indwelling Christ. Remember to honor that indwelling Christ. Honor your truth in all of the work that you do, in everything that you do, all that you think, all that you say, and all that you do. And as we prepare right now to move from this space, this physical space, this virtual space, I invite you to affirm with me these three statements. I'll read it, excuse me, I'll read it first, and then I invite you to please repeat. God speaks to me. God speaks to me. I am ready to live a life worthy of the calling I have received. I am willing and ready to live a life worthy of the calling I have received. I lovingly and willingly answer the call. I lovingly and willingly answer the call. God bless you.